All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course. I do see people waiting. Let me start it and pause it. Oh, shit, I didn't put my decorative glove on. What a big problem. Yes, I'll mention Trump's peace talks later, I believe, in the stream to Lime Paul. You going to mention Trump's peace talks going good? Yes, peace appears to be breaking out again. I'm sure that the ghost of John McCain is in pain at the moment. The dashing rogue, Lauren Southern, went before Canadian Parliament about tenant media and was questioned about our favorite walrus, Wizard Birdman, sent you a link on X. Goodness. The glove do fit. You don't have to equip. What do we have to talk about today? Thankfully, today is not like yesterday. Yesterday was a little bit slow news-wise. There wasn't actually a whole lot to talk about. When I was on the quartercast there, we spent almost half an hour just sort of dicking around, actually, because there wasn't much to talk about at all. But we have to talk about Hegseth, actually. He had written a book some time ago, and I have mixed feelings with regards to his feelings with regards to NATO and the Geneva Convention and things like that. Partially, he's completely correct. I'll get into that. Partially, I have to disavow. So, again, another cabinet pick where it's like, I mean, it's sort of a mixed model when you think about it. Elon Musk talking about slavery. Everyone is descended from both slaves and slave owners, he said. He is fundamentally correct, but the left is going completely apeshit over this. They've gone insane. Giving nuclear weapons to Ukraine. Oh, yeah. I wonder why we're talking about that. Then we got some science news. We got refurbished heart pacemakers. I don't know. If I had to have a pacemaker in my chest, I don't know that I would want it to have been in another person's chest. I'm just saying that sounds a little bit weird, but yeah, I mean, I guess if you can reuse it. And then Egyptian hallucinogenics, we're going to talk about that. That's a fascinating archaeological study, actually. We've got all sorts of crazy shit going on right now. Thankfully, it is not a slow news day. Yes. I like fast-paced news days. I'd rather have too many things that I can not talk about than too few things to actually put on the docket, especially if I'm doing a live stream. If it's the weekend, it doesn't really matter. Hello, Dave. Greetings and hallucinations, weirdos. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, I know. I'm a sellout. I'm drinking a Starbucks latte or double shot energy. I need it. Take that. Take some 5-hour energy. Caffeine, my particular drug of choice, along with mushroom pills and everything else under the sun. It's the only thing keeping me alive at this point, probably. Oh, yes, I do have to do a sponsorship shout out as well. Just a sec. Also, if you hear some background noise, my parents are preparing for Thanksgiving. You do it preemptively. And so they tend to shout because they're a little bit older. They can't hear as well as they used to. I have that same problem myself, I guess. No, cultivated mind. 5-hour energy is delicious. Although I will say, your mushroom pills definitely have more of an effect. I take one every single fucking morning. N.O. Dave. So I measured my garden space, 34 by 42. All that for a single man. That's pretty good. I've never measured mine, actually. I think it's about 30 by 40. It's probably about the same size, but I'm not 100% sure. Cooking Inferno. Have you ever considered doing just random discussion live streams on a weekend day? Just Freemason form fun. Yeah, that sounds fun. I mean, I've done Bant streams before. If it's a slow enough news day, I get through the news in like 20 minutes. There's nothing else to do other than weird shit. The Napalm Brothers. Fashion icon or weirdo? Questions. I'm not trying to be a fashion icon. I just think that it looks good. Five-hour yuck tastes like soap. Honestly, I think 5-hour energy tastes good. I mean, it's got, what is it, 3,000% of your daily dose of vitamin B12, 2,000%, I mean, 2,800% of your daily dose. B6, 250%. It's got a bunch of niacin in it. You can give somebody a niacin flush if you want to. I think you'd have to drink about 4 of them. I don't think that you would survive that, actually. The Dashing Rogue. I don't know about you, boys, but caffeine is the only high I'll ever need, and cocaine. Yeah. Yeah, I've never used coke. Saw somebody using it in jail once. That was a very strange experience. Just saying. Let's get to Hegseth first, though. Then I'll give the sponsorship link and stuff like that. It's pinned at the top if you're on YouTube. I am sponsored in part by Black Forest Supplements, actually. And they sent me a sample. I've been using it for some days because I never pitch anything unless I use it and approve of it. Yeah, it works. Much like with Cultivated Mind, yeah, I love my supplements. I'm being kept alive by chems at the moment. So I'll shout them out in a few minutes. Trump Pentagon pick attacks UN and NATO and urges U.S. to ignore Geneva Conventions. Hegseth, who has been chosen potentially for a role in the Trump admin, has some opinions that I strongly agree with and some opinions that I strongly disagree with. I would confirm him anyway. I mean, if I was in Congress, I would vote to confirm and then simply address the issues afterwards. But it remains to be seen whether he'll actually be confirmed by the Republican-run Senate. One of his beliefs is that the U.S. should effectively ignore the Geneva Convention when fighting non-state actors. So we're talking Al-Qaeda or something like that. I agree with this. I think it's the right thing to do. You can't operate from a strategic weakness, so to speak. He's fundamentally right. If you have an enemy that has dedicated itself wholly to fucking with you and your citizens, and you don't go all in, that is, you don't, fly in the bird, so to speak, you have to hold back, that's not going to work. As far as leaving NATO, though, I do not agree with that. And I know that I differ from some members of my audience on the issue of NATO. I think NATO needs to be retooled. I think it needs to be reformed. But I don't disagree with it existing. It's sort of like a modern Delian League, so to speak. And they had their own problems, too. The Athenians, robbed the other members of the Delian League in order to make temples and shit like that, and sort of set themselves up as the capital of this particular military arrangement. I think that we need to move away from that sort of thing, insist that other members of NATO simply pay their fair share, and cut loose the ones that won't, belly up to the bar. For example, Canada. If Canada is only willing to spend, I think it's 1.3 or something like that, 1.35% on defense spending, then they should be kicked out of NATO. They shouldn't be part of the alliance. The alliance itself isn't the problem. Some of the members spend more, GDP than the United States does, actually, at this point. I think Poland and a few others, some of the Eastern European states. They're our true allies. They're the ones that are really... God damn, have you seen the Polish military? I mean, Polish military hell march. Nobody wants to fuck with them. There's a reason for that. The United States has the toys that make the noise, and definitely a lot more drones, but Poland is a pretty bro tier. Nonetheless, there are some countries in NATO that they're not paying the GDP share that they're technically supposed to be paying. I would support trying to force them to allocate that money. And if they're not willing to, then they can be kicked out of NATO. But I don't believe in dismantling it. As far as fighting non-state actors and ignoring modern conventions when you're fighting them, since they ignore those conventions, I don't think that that's problematic in any way. Let's say you're fighting terrorists, not a state actor. They have no diplomatic leverage or anything. But whenever they capture your troops or your civilians, they rape them, and they cut their arms off. It's going to be difficult to negotiate with them in a normal manner now, isn't it? Just saying, there are some people in the world that do not obey international law. I mean, the United States ignores it anyway on a regular basis. Look at the Iraq War, for example. So what's the fucking problem? I don't see what the problem is, honestly. Yeah, Trump's peace talks. We'll definitely get to those. Let's see. Webster's Wares. Good morning, Clankers. 30% off site-wide until December 1st for our Black Friday event. All Sticks merch included. Now back to fixing this heat pump in 27-degree, 13-mile-per-hour wind. Clank, baby. Yeah, enjoy that. Have some fun. Yeah, it's a little bit dreary here at the moment as well. Very rainy. Not too breezy, thankfully, but I wish it would be like 10 degrees cooler so that it would snow instead of rain, actually, at the moment. That would be festive. You know, Thanksgiving is good with a little blanket of snow. Unfortunately, we're just getting rain. Woe unto me. By the way, I will shout out our main sponsor for this particular video first. I'm going to try to pronounce what I'm seeing on this bottle. I'm sponsored in part by blackforestsupplements.com. This is turkesterone, I believe it's called, and Tonkat Ali. 1,000 milligrams per serving. 2-month supply, too. I've been using this for a number of days, and I've got another bottle, too. I'll talk about that. Pronunciation aside, I can attest to the fact that it boosts energy. Anecdotally speaking, the FDA has not approved my statement, so to speak. And then something called NMN. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but again, it seems to work. This is a common thing on my channel. I'm going to chem myself up. Effectively, what it does is it tries to restore your body's ability to rehabilitate itself. So, for instance, you've been injured, and you're boosting your ability to recover. If you're into bodybuilding or anything like that, probably strongly recommended. If you're more like me, clearly not a bodybuilder, it's more restorative than anything else. Not foul, definitely works. Seems to boost energy, which is really, really great. Everyone could use a little bit more of that, especially when you're moving towards your 40s. But yeah, it's some good stuff. And I've been using it every single day, actually. In fact, I forgot to take my pill, so I'll do that live. Yeah, it's a good company. It's run by some true bros. So definitely take a look at that. Link in the description. Also, link at the top. If you're watching on YouTube, it's pinned. And yeah, get your energy, my dude. This is a rather informal channel now, isn't it? My little infomercials are a little bit different from the average content creator. I've been doing this for a long time. Yeah, I would say blackforestsupplements.com. Again, definitely take a check on their content. Cooking Inferno, snow forecast for Thanksgiving Day, Sticks. Oh, excellent. I didn't see that. I thought it was going to be more of a drizzly mix, actually, which would be sad. It could be worse. You know, you could have like an ice storm or something like that. Everything gets knocked out. The other day, when I was on live stream, the electricity fluttered off for a moment. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Mom shouted upstairs and everything, and I had to go off the live stream for a minute because I was trying to figure out what the fuck was going on. Somehow it didn't knock out the internet. Normally, if you lose power for more than like half a second, the internet goes out. Cultivated Mind, hello from Houston. We have added a hot cocoa and chaga mix for the winter. Don't forget the 10% off with code STICKS. Merry Christmas, Clankers. Matcha coming soon. Damn, that sounds fun. Can I have the cocoa and chaga mix? I would like to see that. Wasted Bonehead, good morning from the grave. Are they really insane enough to start World War III? They are trying. We'll get into that. Is it something to worry about, or am I just overloaded with fear porn? We will be talking about the fact that U.S. officials officially did discuss giving nukes to the Ukrainians. That would be a bad idea, as I will explain. Daz Lol Tractor took your advice and dropped the vice of laziness. I'm now learning to paint miniatures and speak Spanish on my quest to single-handedly drive the birth rate of the nation up, one hot Latina at a time. Wish me luck. Just remember, sharing is caring. But yes, good. Anytime you drop a vice or learn a new skill, it makes you more survivable. We need a society in which people try to do that. Yes, cultivated mind. Yes, Styx, yours is on the way. Thank you very much. I take so many supplements. I mean, I've still got plenty of energy. I'm not exactly elderly or anything like that, but, every little bit counts. Some of these things are regenerative in nature. I have a feeling that these are regenerative as well. I've been using Brick House, Cultivated Mind, and Black Forest. Honestly, I feel fucking great most of the time. King of Biltong, I need to do a shout out for Baby Bug Express. Dustin visited us. Clank. We are also planning a 2-hour live stream on Thanksgiving. Eat at Anton's. We'll be doing a roast pork shoulder in the Weber. That sounds delicious. Bystander syndrome. I immediately doubt controversy with anyone not on the left. They lied enough and I'm not going to believe them anymore. Some of the things that Hegseth said would generally be controversial. Like the idea of withdrawing from NATO, I do not support that. The idea of forcing NATO to reform, I would support. The idea of fucking with your enemies if they're not state actors and ignoring international conventions, I have no problem with that. F. Winters Lodig, did you see the Sank Lichtman brawl on Piers Morgan? Yes, I've talked about that already. Oh my God, I'm going to watch that again later. Thank you for reminding me of how funny that is. Interesting to see Lichtman blame his loss on disinformation and Cenk getting more and more sane these days. Oh, he's not sane. Cenk is still insane. He's still a socialist. And his idea of reform is in that socialistic direction. I've covered that, like with Bernie and some of these other people. They'll criticize the Democratic Party, but the cure is worse than the disease, so to speak. That being said, Lichtman, he's had a complete meltdown. He's done. Yeah, Lichtman got owned by Cenk. He's gotten owned by basically everyone. His live stream was fucking hilarious, by the way. I think he was on with his son, if I remember correctly. He's nuts. Elon Musk. Everyone is descended from both slaves and slave owners. It was an extremely common practice from the dawn of civilization. So, in response to catch up, Sunny Hostin was shocked to discover that her ancestors owned slaves. That's because, of course, she happens to be of mixed race. Elon Musk is fundamentally correct. Virtually everyone in this world, at some point in their lineage, there was slavery involved because slavery was exceptionally common up until fairly modern times. Basically, up until the 1800s for the most part. It still continues to this day. There are millions of slaves in this world. There are slaves in China, often repatriated from the Philippines, Vietnam, places like that. There are lots of slaves in Arabia. There are an enormous number of slaves in South America. And of course, Libya, half the population at this point is enslaved thanks to Hillary Clinton. For the most part, everyone in their lineage has both slaves and slaveholders. What happened is that slaveholders would fuck the slaves. And then there would be children that were born. It didn't matter what race they were or anything like that. That was just sort of the way that it worked. The slave was understood to be nothing more than property. So if the slave owner fucked them, and it was typically the male screwing a female, although occasionally I think it worked in reverse, that was not considered to be culturally wrong up until about 200 years ago. So virtually all of us have slavery in our lineage. For example, I can trace my ancestry back to the 1500s. I'm sure that some of the people in there cheated or had slaves, fucked a slave, or they were slaves or something like that. It's just the way that things work. Nonetheless, the left is acting like Elon Musk is going completely apeshit and saying weird things that don't make sense. But it's historically true. It's historically the norm. 99% of you, You have a slave in your lineage, and probably a slave owner or two as well. It's just the way that it worked up until fairly relative modern times. Yes, Carlos, you are correct. The first legal slave owner in the United States, I do believe, was actually a black man. But that's just the U.S., so that doesn't even account for a small proportion of the slaves that existed over time. If we're talking about the slave trade throughout those centuries, Brazil was actually the main holder, and the Caribbean to an extent. That was mainly Brazil. I think it was 4 million people or some crazy sum like that. Apparently in Brazil, and if there are any Brazilians watching, maybe you can fact check me. Apparently the racial categorization system there is basically, if you can prove that your lineage has been white or black or anything else over time, that is pure-blooded, as they would say, that's considered superior to if you're mixed in any way. If I remember correctly, I think that was Brazil. Like, if you can't prove your lineage, that's considered to be a big problem there. People of Hispanic origin, they have more racial views, definitely, than the Anglo-Saxons tend to have. Cody Golden, I'm in the military. Hopefully Ukraine doesn't send missiles too deep into Russia. War for Christmas would really hurt my vibe. Very least to get MREs. Ate one last night, actually, the tomato vegetable one. That was from the Lincolnton crowd. Big shout out to you, by the way, Andrew. It was delicious. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It was almost as good as the vegetarian lasagna. It was just a little bit on the dry side. That was the only thing about it. It could have been a little bit more moist. Oh, God. Salty Reese's Cup. I can't read your comment on a YouTube live stream, but I do find it very funny. Cooking Inferno. Louisiana had an old, vibrant culture of black slave owners, relatively common and socially acceptable. Yes, to be clear, I mean, if I don't point this out, somebody's going to have a problem with what I'm saying. I oppose slavery. I believe that people should be left alone. I believe in the NAP. But slavery is simply a historical fact throughout human culture, in virtually every human culture, and was for thousands and thousands of years. Slavery has been around for a long time. And so, yes, it is fun. Elon Musk is fundamentally correct, but people are acting like what he's saying is problematic. Liberals don't appear to know much about history. God, it would be fun to school some of them, but I don't know if they can learn. I'm not 100% sure. F-Winters Loaded, you said Trump would only be a soft reset. I think it's safe to say you might have got more than you bargained for. No, I was correct, and we're seeing that right now. With regards to his nominees, look at the ones that are the best, like Gabbard and so forth. What's happening to them? The deep state is trying to veto them, leaving behind the softballs. Trump did this because he wanted to do a big ask, and he gets some of what he wanted out of it. Kraken Joker, the Vomlet sounds gross. Never tried that one. If anyone happens to have a Vomlet MRE, I will try it on a live stream. I probably won't enjoy it, but I will try it. The worst was the white chicken chunks, though. Oh my God, menu 3. And they retained it in the last round. They cycle them in and out over time as they design different MREs. For some reason, they decided that literally the worst one, which is completely tasteless and foul, would remain, while some of them that are actually pretty good, they got cycled out. Thankfully, a subscriber sent me about a half a dozen of the vegetarian lasagna ones. They're the low salt version, but you can also always compensate. And, but yes, the white chicken chunks unfortunately remain. Probably worse than nukes. We'll talk about that in a second here. U.S. officials discussed giving nuclear weapons to Ukraine. This is apparently canonical. They actually discussed this. Now, in the end, I don't think that they're actually going to send nuclear weapons to Ukraine. It is a signer of the NPT and so forth, and so it's unlikely to happen. But the fact that any officials within the United States military or political complex would even consider the possibility of doing this is extremely disturbing. Because what would happen if you gave nukes to the Ukrainians? They'd use them. That's the whole problem. It would set off World War III. But this was seriously discussed by people that we're funding with our tax money. I don't find that to be particularly helpful. Bystander syndrome. What is your response to all the Zionists in the Trump cabinet? It looks more like Israel first now. I'm concerned Trump's circle will blood sacrifice Americans for a sandlot I don't give a fuck about. I don't give a fuck if some of these people happen to be particularly pro-Israel. All I ask is that they be sane. Apparently, with the Biden cabinet, there are some insane people in there. I would trust Tulsi Gabbard and some of these other people over the others. Wasted Bonehead. I guess it's time to listen to Christmas at Ground Zero on repeat. Huh, never heard that. Probably should. Joe, do you think interest rates will rise with Trump? I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen with the economy. One thing that I can tell you for sure, though, is that Biden is trying to burn the barn down on his way out the door. He is doing this with foreign policy to great delight from his fellow unipartyists, and he's definitely trying to angle to fuck the economy. Whether he's successful or not remains to be seen. My hope is that Donald Trump can give us a soft landing. I expect an economic downturn. We've been running on fumes now for years. It's only a matter of time before things come crashing down. But if you have a sane leader like Donald Trump who understands business, things will generally be better. He'll still take the blame for it. I talked about that this morning. He's going to take the blame for Biden's economic problems. Gee, Pepper Actual, slavery still exists. Yeah, there are probably 100 million slaves in the world, unfortunately. All over Asia, North Africa, places like that. I suck at guitar. We're getting World War III and Crystal Chan before GTA 6. The Dashing Rogue. Ukraine won't use nukes and Eurasia is scared. No, I think if you gave Zelensky unfettered access to nuclear weapons, it would be a huge fucking problem. I guess part of the suggestion is you sort of do what we do with Turkey, which is you station US-run nuclear weapons there. That's a little bit better, but the problem is they're in the line of fire. And so if they take fire, you can end up with a problem where your enemy takes your nukes away and decides to use them against you. Holden Sneedmeyer, BBC article speaks of a growing fear of Ukrainian lines collapsing. Meanwhile, Russians are prepping for something big. Take a major city, I think. Entirely possible. They've got the manpower to do it. I do not have a side in that particular war. I just think that it's sad that the war is happening at all, but I don't believe in putting nukes in the region. That sounds like a bad idea, just saying. Wasted Bonehead, Christmas at Ground Zero is a great song. The story behind it makes it 10 times better. Sounds like some cool beans, man. Let's read out our sponsors really quickly. We'll get to the non-political news in a moment. We've got cultivated-mind.com, where you can get mushroom pills. I take one every single day, not without good reason. Anecdotally speaking, it boosts energy. The Immune Renew one, I think, is probably the best, although they're all pretty good. So basically, just take your pick. Depends on what kind of mushrooms you want to ingest. Pumpkinfirecrafts.us, where you can get bookmarks, keychains, belt chains, engraved spoons, glassware, and much more. With the Ouroboros logo, Clank, all the memes from the channel. BillTongUSA.com. Anton can hook you up with some nice meat. He can also hook you up with Stick, Sex, and Hammer tumblers, mugs, and shirts. He's got a store in Roanoke, Texas, which I need to visit fairly soon. And let me tell you, if you're going hiking, bring some Carbonaci or some Angus with you. It's probably a good idea. Maybe you get attacked by a bear. I'm sure that it would rather eat the Angus than eat you. So it might save your life. That'd be pretty funny. That should be his new slogan. Buy my Angus. It might save you from a bear. WickedNeedleEmbroidery.BigCartel.com, where you can get Stick, Sex, and Hammer hats. Several models are available. Several colors and designs. HeritageHeirloomSeedCompany.com, where you can get a seed survival bucket, and then you can grow these bad boys, among other things. Those tomatoes didn't grow themselves. Also, there's Stick, Sex, and Hammer soap. We've got a blue bar, which, by the way, literally blends in with the tray that I've got in the shower. It's exactly the same coloration. It's with cedar, blueberry, and clove. And then we've got another one that's lavender and marjoram. Webster'sWares.com/sticks-wares, where you can get all sorts of Trump stuff. They've got their Black Friday sale through the 1st of December, I think he said. And then also plenty of Stick, Sex, and Hammer merch available. You can get metal straws, save a turtle for later, for your evening dinner, as well as blades, which are extremely sharp. Again, I learned that the hard way. And then finally, jamandbean.com. That is JAMNbean.com, where you can get Clank coffee. And it is fucking delicious. The smoothest, most amazing coffee that you're ever going to have. Also, they've got many teas available, including the Healer, which, yes, I've got that here. Absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, I've got sponsors, believe it or not. Just a second here, though. And I've also got super chats to read. Shit. And Rumble rants, I believe. I'm trying me bloody best. I'm just one person. If winter's loading, if Trump goes scorched earth on Biden's energy and environmental regulations and unleashes Anwar, could that start an abrupt economic boom? Yes, but it'll be compensated for by the fact that you've got an organic economic downturn as the result of Bidenomics, unfortunately. Hopefully it evens itself out so things just remain generally normal for a while. Paul Wilson, World War III, I guess there won't be a peaceful transition of power. Spider Eternal, what is the most overrated Thanksgiving food? Wishing you and yours good food and good times. Anything with green beans in it. I do not like green bean casserole. I've only had one good one in my entire life. I don't understand why people like it so much. Joe, I don't know if this is a legit war or just a laundering scheme. Seems more economic than anything else. Possible. Hopefully. Lime Paul and Trump's peace talks right now, asking again if I may. Yes, it appears that peace might be breaking out over in Israel, actually. Netanyahu coming out the other day and saying that peace agreement between Israel and Lebanon was fairly close, which is good. I mean, no, Israel and Hamas specifically. The war continues with Lebanon. We'll see what happens. OMG puppies, Ukraine conflict was tragically unnecessary. NED and Soros's Renaissance Foundation overthrew their government in 2014 because just being neutral was unacceptable to the neocons. Yeah, there's a lot of court intrigue over there. Now, here's a weird article. Let's get off politics for a little while here. I'll probably keep this live stream a little bit shorter than normal, by the way. Again, I was making up for lost time sleeping, but I am a chronic insomniac who's currently chemmed up, so I'm doing the best that I can. I've got 3 different energy drinks in front of me. There's a reason for that. Refurbished heart pacemakers work like new. I've got multiple things to say about this. The used devices could expand access to the life-saving technology. Apparently what they're doing is they're taking pacemakers that have been put in people's chests in the first world, cleaning them off, and then giving them to people in the third world. That's a little bit strange, number one. And I don't know that I would want a used pacemaker in my chest. Like, let's say that my heart fucking stops tomorrow and they resuscitate me and say you need a pacemaker. I think that I would rather it not have shocked somebody else's heart back into action. I think that's a little bit strange. Sounds like cyborg shit to me. It's just saying they can't cost that much to make. I mean, with medical regulations, I'm sure that they cost an extreme amount of money. But there's no reason why you couldn't make them quite cheaply. A program to refurbish used pacemakers could expand access to the life-saving devices. In a clinical trial of nearly 300 people, patients who received refurbished pacemakers fared just as well as those who received new ones, scientists reported November 17th. This is some time ago. at the annual American Heart Association meeting. The work could make pacemakers available to people who could not otherwise afford them, cardiac electrophysiologist Thomas Crawford said in a news briefing. The hope, he said, is to scale up the team's operation and deliver pacemakers to patients in low and middle income countries free of charge. Of course, not people of low or middle income in the Western world. You still have to pay the full price. So that's another problem. You're saying basically we're going to give pacemakers to people who can't pay anything at the exclusion of our own population. That's a little problematic. But again, it's a little bit grisly. It's basically, hey, this pacemaker kept Dick Cheney alive for an extended period of time. When he died, we cut him out of his chest, washed it off, and now we're going to put it in yours. I don't want Dick Cheney's pacemaker. I'd rather have none. Just saying. Now people are arguing about Thanksgiving food. The best is stuffing when it's been cooked inside of the turkey. That's the single best Thanksgiving food. That and the cranberry sauce, which I will be making myself. Crossover Maniac, the overrated Thanksgiving food is cranberry sauce. Depends how you make it. I make it nice and tart, and then I pile it into those fucking potatoes. I think I'm making the carrots this year, too. Lightning Stab, nice glove. You Curly from Mice and Men. Yeah, I've unfortunately seen that movie and had to read the book. I was not a fan. One of the most depressive things ever. Why is it that every English teacher in the world, at least that I've experienced, has a thing for extremely depressive content? It's always tragic stories. So it's The Great Gatsby, which I had to read 4 fucking times or something like that. Mice and Men. They never let you read like weird shit like Vonnegut. They always make you Grapes of Wrath and stuff like that. Why is it always depressive stuff? I never understood that. I had like one English teacher who didn't do that. She had us reading The Hobbit and stuff like that. That was pretty cool. King of Biltong. Add Biltong in your stocking stuffers this season. High protein gifts packed with B12, zinc, iron, creatine, and more. Grab them at BiltongUSA.com. Sticks 10 for 10% off. Dried fruit in stock. Yes, I've got that in the refrigerator right now. I'll be eating some later. And a follow-up, we live stream on Fridays and Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. Shit talking while cooking real food. Follow our channel, Eat It Antons, or link https:/rumble.com/c/eatitantons and hit that follow. Yeah, I got to eat that fruit. Why do people think cranberry is overrated? It doesn't make any sense. Cranberries are delicious. Now let's talk about hallucinogenics. Let's talk about drugs for a while. 2,000-year-old ritual mug reveals ancient Egyptians drank hallucinogenic beverages, scientists say. Yes, they're not 100% sure exactly what the blends were used for. It could be ritualistic or it could have been more recreational, assuming ritualism. And they're not 100% sure what was in them. Apparently, there was at least one instance where it was a mix of Blue Lotus and breast milk. Yes, this was drank for ritualistic purposes in ancient Egypt. I tried Blue Lotus once. It gave me weird fucking visions. Let me tell you. I drank some of it steeped in wine, and then I smoked some of it. I don't know which one caused the ultimate effect. And I closed my eyes. I sort of almost nodded off, and I was seeing like this weird Egyptian-looking god, actually, which I'm assuming is psychosomatic in nature. But it's sort of a dreamlike state. Egyptian rituals of drunkenness, identifying very specific inorganic, organic, and psychotropic elements from the Bez mug, is a welcome discovery, said Dr. Betsy Bryan, an Alexander Badawi Emerita, professor of Egyptian art and archaeology at Johns Hopkins. Bryan was not involved with the new study. Now, they looked into it. They managed to figure out kind of, sort of what was in it. And so they're thinking that it was used for literally drugging people up. I have a feeling sometimes it wasn't ritualistic, though. People have always loved their intoxicating substances. But I know they used Blue Lotus. That was common. If you've ever heard of the Lotus Eaters, and I don't mean Sargon's channel, but the literal island of the Lotus Eaters, That's taken from what's it called? Cerulean. It's literally a species, and it's an intoxicant and mildly sedative, actually, in action. And people have been eating these things for all of eternity. Stephen Nizek, my history teacher had me read The Richest Man in Babylon. I will always thank him for that. I haven't read that one. The Desert Lad, rather teachers get us hooked on reading versus reading depressing shit. Seeing a kid reading a comic book versus no book should be seen as a win. Agreed completely. Alan Smithy, English lit sucks. How many times do I need to read The Crucible? I actually enjoyed The Crucible. Is it mildly depressing? Yeah, but it's not on the same order as like Great Gatsby or something like that. Heritage Heirloom Seed Company Christmas boxes are now available for pre-order. These make fantastic gifts and in limited supplies. Order today before they are all gone. Yes, indeed. Oh, please, by the way, Heritage Heirloom, please message me later. I've got business discussions to make. I'm still using that soap, by the way, but it's almost gone. It's a real big problem. Hemingway. I like Hemingway. Hemingway is good. Cormac McCarthy. Blood Meridian. Originally, by the way, sort of fell flat, but then later on was recognized as a national treasure. I think he died recently, if I remember correctly. I loved Blood Meridian. I don't think that you would be able to show that to an elementary school audience, but at least high schoolers, yeah, and I think that they can deal with it. Yeah, McCarthy, Hemingway. One of the worst ones was The Sound and the Fury, by the way. That was Faulkner, I think, if I remember correctly. That was one of the worst books I've ever read. It's funny, all of the classical works that typically get piled into the English curriculum, number one, they're depressive, and number two, they're a huge letdown. Meanwhile, you do like the summer reading thing, and you get Vonnegut, you get Hemingway, you get all the good shit. I was that weird kid that read way, way more than I needed to, by the way, for those summer programs. I think, what was the name of it? Some of the feminist literature stuff actually wasn't bad. What the fuck was its name? Northanger Abbey, I think it was called. It's like feminist literature. It's like, hey, the author happened to be female 100 years ago, and so it's unique. That one was good. Wasted Bonehead Sticks, I have definitive proof Sigil is a goddamn furry. He posted directly from the Kamala hyena porn Reddit in my Discord. God. Yeah, there's so much great literature out there, but then the English teachers, they always make you read the fucking Great Gatsby and shit like that. I read it, I know I read it at least 3 times. I remember reading it at least once in middle school, then in 9th grade, and then I think I read it again in my senior year. So I'm like, okay, I have an encyclopedic memory of this depressing book. I mean, I'm going to be able to pass this test, but I'm not going to bother reading it the 3rd fucking time. It's just depressive. For those of you who have had the joy of not reading The Great Gatsby, spoiler alert, it's about a dude who's massively wealthy. He's basically Elon Musk, and then he ends up dying and nobody comes to his funeral because nobody gives a fuck. That's basically the premise of the book. By the way, please send no more super chats. I'm going to go offline in a minute here because I've run out of articles to talk about. Not just a string. I just wanted to wish well all the online activists experiencing job loss and loss of pay, definitely unrelated to Democrat money trouble. Couldn't happen to nicer people. Trump sent him back a decade. Yes, talked about that this morning. The DNC is currently fundamentally broke. They laid off 2/3 of their staff, and they're trying not to even give them severance pay. They literally have a GoFundMe to try to get money at the moment. Dull and tired. Sticks, have you heard of Gnostic Informant on YouTube? Dude's got so much knowledge, and he can read ancient Greek. Throws a lot of common beliefs out the window. That's pretty cool if he can read ancient Greek. No, I haven't heard of him. I'll have to look him up. Wasted Bonehead. Disgusting. I would never jerk off to Kamala. Chat on this channel typically has gone completely insane. Joe, I hated reading when I was a kid. My teacher let me read magazines. I exclusively wrote a Japanese car mag in my logbook and just looked at titties. Didn't read one word. Goodness. John Hopkins, good morning, Morrissey style. Dildos on the floor. I know it's serious. Unlike unreasonable fears about World War III happening, very unlikely. Clank. Sigil Stone, but he did to furry hyena Kamala. Polished his bone till it shined. I didn't need that image in my head. F. Winters Lodig, I like all of Trump's picks, but flummoxed by Hegseth. I get that he wants to reform the Pentagon, but Hegseth is a Fox host who has no idea what he's getting into with leading the Pentagon. I think he would do a good job. The only thing is, I would say, I am not a NATO skeptic. I think I differentiate from Jeremy and a bunch of other content creators on this. I support NATO. I just think that it shouldn't be generally used. It should be defensive, and the other NATO members need to pay their fair share. If you can do that, then everything else is fine. Defensive alliances are fine with me. The Desert Lad, we agree regulations have their place, but when do they overextend? Regs that big companies pay off and little ones suffer under should be illegal. Fully agreed. Jason Lane, Greek is easy to learn if you know English. The alphabet can be learned in an afternoon, and there's lots of crossover between Greek and Latin. The syntax and structure is the hard part. Yeah, but for those of us who are not particularly linguistically talented, which is very odd because I can edit Old English and speak in archaicism, but for foreign languages, yeah, that would be difficult. Anyways, I'm going to go offline, I think. Keep in mind, tomorrow I'll be live with the quartering as well at 1 o'clock, roughly. Although sometimes he has a guest on, and so then it maybe bounces it by a half an hour or something. Like the other day, he had Pavlovsky on, actually, the head of Rumble. That was pretty cool. Saw that. And so I will go online tomorrow at my normal time, roughly 11 a.m., although for some reason the other day I went live at noon, and I'm not exactly sure what I did wrong. I didn't know what time it was. I think that my phone fucked up. I'm not sure. So I'll go online with more news tomorrow. That's about all. Peace out.